Hello, world, and welcome to the Hard Things podcast. This episode is the first of seven in the initial series that I'm doing. My name is Blaine Burgess, and I'm the host of the show. Hard Things is a podcast about hard things. It's about life. Life is hard. Your choices can either make it harder or easier, but ultimately, we still have to face all of kind of the core content of life. I want to talk about that, my experience, and really this was born of a New Year's resolution I made in 2024. I just looked kind of back at the last few years, and I have a desire to create. I think creation comes from wanting to kind of transmute feelings about things that happen to you, experiences, and I think it'll be better for me and the people around me if I'm able to, constructively use that energy versus, destructively. That was my New Year's resolution, and really, it's all about finding my voice, as being able to express myself a little bit better. So a podcast is a little bit cliche, but I hope that you listening get something out of this episode and many more in the future. A core concept that I want to focus on is brevity. Brevity kind of sounds like an alcoholic beverage, but it is, actually I think at least one of the core concepts of effective communication. William Shakespeare said, "Brevity is the soul of wit." And really, to me, what that means is, it's about that quick wit. I really admire people like Pat McAfee. I've been watching a lot of Pat McAfee show, just listening to it in the background while I work. And he always he's got little quips he always uses. He kind of adds new ones in there. Some of them stick, some of them don't. But I think that's why people love him and his show so much. And brevity, to me, can make you a lot more effective at communicating if you can harness that. The definition of it exactly is concise and exact use of words in writing or speech. But I think it is a little bit more than that. That's the base definition. But and life is ultimately, it is hard, but it's also short. So let's communicate ideas effectively. With that in mind, this first episode, I kind of put together 7 quotes. Quotes are something that I kind of value. I see a new one on Instagram or the internet, reading a book, whatever it may be, and I typically save it. Some people that know me best make fun of me for the amount of screenshots. I have over 10,000 on my phone, notes for days. I got books, like moleskin books of quotes, and I think it's time to start putting some of those to use. So today I picked 7, and each of these coincides with a year that I've competed in weightlifting. I've competed in Olympic weightlifting for 7 years. For those of you who don't know the sport, it's you get 6 attempts, 3 in the snatch. It's the first discipline. It's a barbell straight from the ground to overhead, and a clean and jerk is from the ground to the chest, and then you push it overhead with your legs. And I've just found a lot of utility in that method of training. There's a component of power, but also there's a little bit of poetry to it. And in competition, it's also a chess match in terms of choosing the weights you're going to attempt and competing against other people. So that's been a really useful tool. Iron sharpens iron, not to use, there's a bonus quote for you. But it's been a really great way. It's been kind of a labyrinth of different issues have come up and forced me to deal with them. And it's made me better on the platform that we compete on, and it's made me better in life. So, in the in the sense of brevity, my goal for the intro is about 5 minutes, and here we are. Each episode, by the way, is I want it to be about 30 minutes. If I have a guest on, may go a little longer, but that's what you can expect here. So the first quote I'm going to rattle off the quote and then talk about that year that I competed at the Arnold specifically. So the Arnold Classic, to bring it back again, is a competition where USA Weightlifting will host a meet that's a part of the larger Arnold Sports Festival. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's festival. He's put it on since I was a kid. I grew up here in Columbus, Ohio, and it's been here for over 30 years. Probably a lot longer than that. That's just how long I've been alive. So my first real engagement with Olympic weightlifting pretty much occurred at the Arnold. So yeah, this is going back even to before that. So this is 2017. I was pretty deep into CrossFit. I was at a gym with a bunch of competitors. We hired a coach. If you're a CrossFitter or CrossFit adjacent, you know the team Brute Strength. I got a lot better on that program, especially when it comes to gymnastics. I'm a larger person, so at this point I was probably weighing about 260 pounds, and I could do pretty much all the gymnastics movements in CrossFit, but I could clean and jerk a little bit over body weight, a little bit over 260. I was kind of pushing 300 in those days, and I could snatch around 200 pounds and pretty consistently, and I was a lot stronger than that, but my technique was awful. And it always frustrated me because I wasn't really good at the things small people could do, and I wasn't really that good at the things that big people should be able to do. So CrossFit as a sport, really not made for someone like me, but I figured that out pretty quickly, as I'll tell you. So quote number one is from Oprah Winfrey. Who better to bring us in with number one? So passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. I think that is a very simple phrase, but if you really feel, what it means, I'm sure for her it's, being on TV, being able to produce a show, that's obviously something very powerful for her. And she's, done that on a very high level for a long time. For me, growing up, it was always sports like baseball. I would hit a home run, feel that instant pop, and you feel a lot of joy from that. I love baseball in that way. Wrestling was the same. I would get a good takedown, throw someone right to their back, get a pin, those kind of one-hit wonders, dopamine shots by way of sports are something that really, really satisfies me. And the first instance I noticed Olympic weightlifting, I was starting Harvard football 2009. The very first day of strength and conditioning, we went in the weight room and we did the hang snatch and hang clean, which is just lifting the bar from your hip to either overhead or to your shoulders, and we're using straps, so the hands were fastened to the bar, and I just loved it. Instantly I was like, this snatch movement is my thing. Like, I am just instantly good at it, and not only that, but it feels good and I like it. So at that point I had 5 years actually of college football ahead of me, as a long slow grind of that, which I can talk about another day. But man, I really ignored that feeling, and that passion, that power, something I ignored in that moment. It came back to me though after I graduated. I had a friend, Daniel Walter. It was his birthday a couple weeks ago. Shout out Danny. He's actually going to be a guest on the podcast here pretty soon, towards May of 2024. So, but he signed up for a meet. He invited me to come watch, and I went to this meet, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this chess match happening, everyone's lifting weights. This is incredible. Like, I like CrossFit, and I think I like CrossFit because I like weightlifting. But at that point, there was no really impetus for me to start. Like, it wasn't strong enough at that point for me to drop everything and go train this way. So fast forward to 2017 Arnold. I was on a CrossFit team and did the CrossFit competition. We finished kind of middle of the pack, I think. It was pretty underwhelming. I had fun, but as we were leaving, I had my gym bag on, and I walk out into the hallway, and one of the side ballrooms was Olympic weightlifting, and it was, popping off. It was weightlifting in its most electric form. I don't remember who exactly was lifting, but it was a good session, and saw a couple people hit some big lifts, and I was like, okay, 1 year from now, I'm going to do the Arnold. So that for me finally sealed the deal. I finally gave in to what I felt, and 7 years later, no regrets. Maybe a few, I don't know. We'll talk about those here. So the second quote is by Paulo Coelho, or Coelho, depending on who you ask. He's the author of The Alchemist, a pretty popular book, cool kind of fiction, but pretty deep book. So the first part of the quote that I want to touch on is, every search begins with beginner's luck. And I think this is a situation I see a lot with people just getting into Olympic weightlifting, or really getting into anything for the first time. Beginner's luck is awesome. I have to say, just starting something, being really good at it, it feels really good. I see a lot of weightlifters get in the sport, they get with a coach. In my opinion, periodized strength training for an untrained person or someone who's not used to training a specific way is going to get you progress. Almost any coach out there, if they took the weekend USA weightlifting certification, or even if they didn't, they just read a book, they can probably get you 20-pound PR, 30-pound PR on your squat. And it's right, you're right to be excited by that. But I think people tend to fizzle out after that, or they maybe get frustrated that the same program doesn't elicit the same results over it. There's diminishing marginal returns on this kind of thing, especially with strength training or the human body in general. Any adaptation eventually runs out. But when it comes to beginner's luck, I used that first year, to get on the California strength programming. It's one of the, it was back in the day, and they were the only team that had a lot of great content on YouTube. That's where I learned about, the top athletes at the time. And to be honest, they were entertaining, and it was really the only show in town. So I really enjoyed watching those videos. I used their programming, and like I said, it was periodized. It was pretty smart. It had remnants of, Team Bulgaria, who's the best in the world, back in the day. So I really learned a lot from doing that program, and it ultimately, I went from a 230 kilo total to 330 in just a few short years. So 100 kilos, which is 220 pounds added to my total between the both lifts, is pretty incredible. And to be fair, I had a lot of strength built up and bad technique, but they improved my technique, they improved my strength, and my numbers skyrocketed. So that beginner's luck really was great. That first Arnold 2018, I was in the A session of the super heavyweight category, and going against an Olympian, Fernando Reis from Brazil, was there lifting, and I mean, what a great experience. I had no chance of beating him. I was done lifting and in the audience before he even took his first attempt, but it was incredible. What a great experience. And my goal was to qualify for the national championships, which was 3 months after that, and the total was 310 kilograms. So I had gone from 230 kilograms in 2017 to 310 was the total I did. I snatched 308 pounds, clean and jerked 374, and those numbers blew my previous numbers completely out of the water. I mean, it was a lot of fun, to be honest. And hitting that last lift, qualifying for nationals, I felt indestructible. And I think that's a great feeling. It's something I celebrated heavily. At the time, I was a personal trainer. All my clients came to watch, and it was, we went to steakhouse dinner afterwards. It was a lot of fun, and very grateful for that experience. But after that, I went to nationals and tried to, 3 months later, and I tried to lift. I opened at the same weight I did at the Arnold for the snatch and the clean and jerk. I just was overtrained, didn't rest after the Arnold, went straight to nationals, just did everything pretty much as wrong as you can do. Also didn't have a professional coach at that point. It was just a training partner that was helping me out, and she knew enough, but she didn't, also I don't think it was a boon in any way. So I learned really quick that that's not how it works. And I went back to the drawing board. I got a little bit better over the course of the following months, but that almost entitlement, it's not entitlement, but almost entitlement to results really sunk in. And I was working hard, but also I expected way more out of my body than I was going to get. So the next Arnold, 2019, that's where the second part of this quote comes in. Every search ends with the victors being severely tested. So I'd bombed out at nationals. I bombed out at that Arnold as well, 2019. I actually snatched a PR of 143 kilos, so 315. So I put a couple of pounds on my snatch at that point and went out for the clean and jerk, and the same thing happened at nationals. And I think at this point I was just pushing my body too hard. I was overtrained for what I could recover from. So it's overtraining as a personal metric, and I think I was just pushing things way too hard with the idea to improve the way I did that first year. And in hindsight, I know I can train hard. I'm tough, but after that's really when I started to dial in, the recovery aspect. So if you're new to weightlifting, you had that initial success, and then maybe you kind of slow down. You're afraid to compete because you don't want to bomb out. I don't suggest bombing out, but if you have to learn a lesson so you can move on and get better, then that is what it is. Sign up for the competition, take your licks, move on. So the third quote, and I'll get to, is from Albert Einstein. The whole of science is nothing more than a refinement of everyday thinking. So after bombing out again, a second time, I was pretty disappointed, but I really, I had two choices. I could stop lifting, or I could really examine myself and try to get better. So I basically reverse engineered everything, back to, what can I handle? What can I recover from? And this is really where the learning kind of took off. So over that next year, the end of 2019, I did the same thing, but I recovered better. And so I showed up at the 2020 Arnold. I had a new job. I was making more money, not personal training anymore. I was working at a company called Whoop. I had a great remote job. And I just had a spidey sense that this was something I was going to need. I don't know why, again, but I had a feeling, and I listened to it. And Whoop was a company that did things I was interested in. So it was a great transition for me. Showed up at that Arnold in 2020. This is basically right as COVID is happening. So they almost canceled the Arnold. It's chaos. At that point I lived in Indiana, so I drove back to Ohio for the Arnold, and I competed and hit personal records. Not only did I not bomb out, I actually improved a bunch. So I went from 140 kilo snatch 2 years ago to 150. So it's 330 kilos or pound snatch, which is 330 pounds straight overhead. At that point, there's only maybe 10 guys that could do that weight that I was competing against. So very exciting. And then the clean and jerk, I did 396 pounds, which was a 10 kilo, 22 pound PR. And so that focus on recovery and that retooling of my approach, I got so much out of that year. And to finally get that carrot on the stick again after working hard for 2 years, really just reinforced, how much I love the sport. And at that point, I was like, I'm confident. I know what it takes. Like, here we go. Saddle up. We're going again. So now, March 2020, it's COVID times. Like I said, I had a great remote job. was very fortunate. I had an empty gym to train in because I was a coach at this gym still on the side. I could go 24/7 and train. I had a great, living situation where I was pretty chill, had a new puppy, life was good. So I was able to train really, really hard. And in that time, also, though, my mental health kind of took a dive. I think just being inside, not having that community anymore, this is something that a lot of people felt in that time. So not only did my total improve, my clean and jerk improved, my weight went up a bunch. So I was, floating around 280. I'd gained like 20 pounds of, I think mostly muscle because I was getting so much stronger and I just looked different. But I went from 280 pounds up all the way to 321 pounds by the 2021 competition. So before I get into that, I will say this quote by Henry David Thoreau. The cost of a thing is the amount of what I will call life, which is required to be exchanged for it, immediately or in the long run. This quote is usually paraphrased, and I like the original quote a little bit better because it talks about immediate or in the long run, and it's really just all about opportunity cost. So COVID almost forced me to give up everything I was doing. I wasn't going out drinking with friends, socializing. It was work, training. There really wasn't any other choice. So when it comes to the COVID, 19 pandemic, I think I ultimately benefited from it. And I feel very fortunate to say that. I don't take it for granted because I know a lot of people really suffered. But I made that exchange. I doubled down on what I wanted to do, and it really, again, it worked out. I got a little bit less progress, but I was able to get better. Personal records and a lot of the accessory lifts, and the 2021 Arnold didn't happen. They canceled it. So we had the competition with USAW in Salt Lake City. So at that point, I had more money. I could afford to fly out, get a hotel, get a rental car, bring a team. At that point, I brought a couple athletes to coach, and it was just very empowering to have, kind of risen my status from struggling personal trainer with no prospects to now, competitive Olympic weightlifter. I'm able to, go enjoy these trips. It's places like Salt Lake City. If you haven't been, it's beautiful. The mountains are awesome. Mountain air is one of my favorite things now. So having those experiences is great. And in a time where a lot of people were suffering, again, I feel very fortunate. But I will say, gaining all that weight, being 320 pounds, made me realize that, this isn't something that's sustainable. I did not feel good. I was developing sleep apnea. And again, the mental health aspect of the pandemic, not having the community, working remote, being isolated with just one person, and really not seeing anyone else, being away from my family as well. All those things really contributed to weight gain, I think. And then two, training hard. Training hard is stressful. So if you don't have that right balance of recovery and your eating isn't dialed in, it goes off the rails real quick. So that brings me to my next quote. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. And that's Carl Jung, my favorite psychoanalyst from antiquity. I think I chose this quote because from the first Arnold competing against Fernando Hayes, the Olympian that I mentioned, he's a true super heavyweight. It's a 231 pound and above class, and so I'm in this class and I just look like a, slightly overweight 105 kilo athlete, they call it heavyweight. So I'm basically a fat heavyweight. lifting against these massive, super heavy weights, and I just don't belong. I look like, hey man, just lose some weight and compete at the weight class below. And I've a lot of reasons I've learned as to why I could never lose that weight that I've learned in the years since. But I always felt like, hey, I'm proud of what I'm doing in weightlifting, but I should, like, am I avoiding getting to a healthy body weight with weightlift? Like, hey, I weightlift, I train, so I'm healthy, right? But I wasn't healthy. At this point, I was like, dude, I'm definitely not healthy. So it was a little bit of a wake-up call. And, I've faced what I was avoiding, ultimately, because March 2022, Arnold, I had, over the course of about 8 months, I kind of left Indiana, moved to Austin, Texas for a new job with a company that is, kind of has a lot of clout in the weightlifting world. They made, some of the original weightlifting equipment back in the day. And again, like another level up, making a little bit more money, new company, a little bit more prestige and aligned with what I want to do. And new city, Austin, Texas, a lot of fun, met a lot of good people to train with. And all of those things serve to kind of help me repair my mental health. And I trained hard in a great facility with great friends. And I was able to maintain my level of training, and I was able to alter it so that I wasn't overtraining while I was in a calorie deficit. And sustaining that calorie deficit for 6 to 8 months, I eventually made what was now the 109 kilo class. It had increased a little bit since my first competition. So 240 pounds from 320. Losing 80 pounds is something that I was super grateful for, that I had found the tools to be able to do that. And it again, it's a life experience I'm just really proud of. It obviously, you can tell it's making me a little bit speechless. And I didn't have the best competition. I had some issues from performing a water cut, and I mean, really just losing 80 pounds. That's kind of traumatic in a way. So competing, I had done a 331 total, which was 1 kilo better than my previous best, a few weeks out from competition in Austin at Raw Barbell. Shout out Tim Rawlings, if you hear this. So I knew I was in good shape and at this lower body weight. But again, had some issues, did a 310 total. So I matched my first total at the lower body weight, and I left some kilos on the table, but ultimately really proud of that effort. So here's where if you study psychology at all, there's like a maintenance phase of things that you can go through. And the next phase of things in Austin, it had been kind of seeing Austin in rose-colored glasses. And once I had that success and I was really happy, I kind of let some of my discipline go. I started partying a little bit more, started hanging out with new people, meeting new friends. At one point too, I had lost my job, and then a little bit after that, Raw Barbell, Tim Rawlings, he had a family need to move back to his hometown of Chicago. It's basically where him and all of his family is from. So his gym was super close and convenient. Like, I basically had it really good. Again, I'm so grateful for the time I had in Austin leading up to this, but you kind of have the rug pulled out from under you in a way. And that's what life does. I'm not saying like, oh, feel bad for me. I think life does that to everyone. And in this case, I didn't handle it the best. I had a little bit of regression, but no matter what, weightlifting was always there for me. I never stopped trying to get better at weightlifting and refining my process. So I did gain some of the weight back. Definitely not all 80 pounds. Gained about 40 to 50 back. And I was upset about that, but I did get better at weightlifting. And I'll kind of bring this quote in. Most modern freedom is at root fear. It's not so much that we are too bold to endure rules, it's rather that we're too timid to endure responsibilities. I think what I uncovered in the process of losing 80 pounds and, all that is there's a lot of discipline that goes into it. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of responsibilities, and you have to hold yourself accountable. So the maintenance of that I found to be even more challenging than the actual, acquiring of it. So again, I did improve. 2023 Arnold, I had kind of, I'd gained the weight back or gained some of the weight back, and I had some injuries because I wasn't really holding myself accountable from the recovery standpoint as much as I had in the past. I was really pushing, and I think pushing a little too hard because I had let myself down in terms of gaining the weight back. So I think it's really important to remember G.K. Chesterton's quote. It's not so much we're too bold to endure rules, we're just too timid to endure responsibilities. And, ultimately, those responsibilities are what's going to get you the success. So I'm thankful for that lesson. And that 2023 Arnold, I did snatch 152 kilos, which is most I've ever snatched at the Arnold. I did match the previous year in Salt Lake, or 2 years prior in Salt Lake. I did 185 kilos, which is 407 pounds. So I eclipsed 400 there with the heavier snatch, so 337 total. My best is 338 still to this day. So that was a great meet, despite lifting at that heavier body weight, kind of letting some of that progress go. So that brings me to quote number 7, last one, I promise, and we'll get out of here. This one's by C.S. Lewis, my favorite fiction author that's out there. A Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe is GOAT. If you haven't read it, check it out. But this quote is, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. So I think this is one I hear pretty often, when people are in situations like me. Maybe this weightlifting career hasn't gone exactly the way I foresaw it. But again, I think you've heard I've learned a lot of lessons, things that are really going to help me moving forward. So again, very, very thankful for the success and the lessons. And I think my goal here in the next year is to do better than this year at the 2024 Arnold, which is easy to do for a few reasons. So first and foremost, that weight that I gained back, I lost it again. I weighed 241 pounds on the day of the Arnold. But if you recall, that weight class, 109 kilos, is 240. So I missed weight. I was 1 pound over, a little bit cocky in my cut because I'd done it before. And to be honest, again, kind of avoiding something. If you look at the times when maybe I haven't performed as well, it's me avoiding something. So I think training wasn't going as well leading up to it, if I'm being honest. And that little self-sabotage at the end, it wasn't conscious. Didn't choose to do it, but subconsciously, I think I sabotaged myself so that I wouldn't either get hurt on the platform, bum out, or just not do as well as I wanted to. My goal is to win. I had a chance to win if I did numbers slightly better than I've done recently, and I think deep down I just knew it wasn't there. So I hope that bit of honesty helps someone out there, someone competing in Olympic weightlifting. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to compete. You got to shoot your shot. And if you miss weight, back to the drawing board. So what I can tell you is I am still down around the body weight that I need to be, the 109 kilos. Probably somewhere like 114, 115-ish. At the moment, if I had to guess. I've been a little bit less strict since I lost the weight again, but starting in 2 weeks, or basically the month of April, back on it and preparing for a competition in September. So I'm very excited to get back on that process, excited again to apply the lessons that I've learned and show up with the goal of doing my best total ever at the 109 kilo body weight, and really just applying the rules and the discipline that I have in the past. It's something that I'm able to do. It's just a matter of executing. So reflecting on all that, it's really helpful when it comes to where I'm going in the future as an athlete and as a person. I've got a big life shift personally, which I'm going to talk on episode 2. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and what I've decided to do professionally. So cliffhanger, want to make sure you come back for episode 2. So that was a little bit about my Olympic weightlifting life, and we'll get into the rest of it throughout the course of the next 7 episodes. These 7 episodes are just the initial series. It's a way for me to organize my thoughts, a way for you all as the audience to get to know me, the different phases of my life. So not every episode will be about Olympic weightlifting. It'll probably be talked about decently often, especially if there's a guest from that world on the podcast. But I look forward to sharing more about my life, my process, all the ways I've learned how to level up in life, and all the lessons that I've learned from taking an L. So I think these things are helpful to talk about, and it's important that we talk about them, because there may be someone going through the exact same thing or something similar or adjacent, whatever, any word you want to use. Again, brevity. I'm going to slow it down. With that said, until next time, I hope you reflect on maybe some of what I said. If one or more of those quotes really kind of hit you hard, sit with that. Think about it. Read it over and over. Read it in the morning before you start your day. And just, again, change one decision in that day that's going to lead you towards the path that you want to be on. Where do you want to be a year from now? Using competition or some other thing to push yourself to that next level, I think is imperative. And with that said, and the next week, I'm going to put it out there right now on tape. My website, infinite-strength.com, for my business, Infinite Strength, is going to roll out ever so slowly. It's a very, very soft launch. But I am going to offer just coaching on, lifestyle design and fitness. And fitness is not just limited to physical. It's also, mental fitness. I'll get into this on later episodes, but if you look at the definition of wellness versus fitness, there's kind of existing on this earth, and then there's also, being fit enough to dominate situations. And I'm not saying you need to dominate every situation. You're going to take L's, but you want to be in a position to win, and just have a chance. At the end of the day, if you have a chance, life's pretty good. And if you don't prepare, you're not going to have a chance. So my coaching calls will kind of be about that. So again, more information on that will be on infinite-strength.com. I appreciate it if you check it out. Sign up for a call yourself. Share it with someone that might need it, that or at the very least, share this podcast, because I think free game is important. With all of that said, I still haven't figured out how I want to close these episodes. So I'm just going to say, until next time, keep getting after it, keep doing your thing, and again, be good to yourself, be good to others. I'll see you next time.